Everyone thinks the difference between broke and rich is a huge salary, some inheritance, or a lucky break in the stock market. It's not. It's $500. Not $500,000. $500. And how you handle that exact number when it shows up in your life is quietly predicting your entire financial future, whether you notice it or not.
My name is Kai Cash, and I spend way too much time thinking about why some people build wealth almost effortlessly, while others stay stuck no matter how much they earn. If you've ever wondered whether you're actually on track or just guessing, stick around, because this one number will tell you more than your salary ever could. Subscribe if you want more of this.
Here's what most financial advice gets wrong. It tells you to focus on your income, your investment returns, your retirement percentage. All useful, eventually. But none of that matters if you fail what I call the $500 test. Because this is the moment where your real financial identity gets revealed.
Think of it like a stress test on a bridge. Engineers don't care how the bridge looks on a calm, sunny day. They care what happens when you put unexpected weight on it. Your finances work the same way. Anyone can look fine when nothing's going wrong. The $500 moment is the weight that tells you whether your financial bridge can actually hold.
So what is the $500 rule, exactly? It's simple. At some point, almost everyone gets hit with a sudden, unplanned $500 expense. A car repair, a vet bill, a cracked phone screen, a dentist appointment you were dreading. According to Federal Reserve research, a huge share of Americans couldn't cover that expense with cash. They'd have to put it on a credit card, borrow from family, or skip paying something else instead. That's not a coincidence, and it's not really about the $500 either. It's about what that moment reveals. People who fail this test almost always share the same pattern. No buffer, no plan, just pure reaction. And here's the part that will blow your mind. It's not usually about how much they earn. I've seen people making six figures fail this test just as often as people making minimum wage, because income and financial stability are two completely different things. Here's the psychology behind it. When an unplanned expense hits and you have zero buffer, your brain snaps into what psychologists call scarcity mode. Suddenly, you're not thinking clearly about trade-offs. You're just trying to make the immediate threat go away. That's why people in this state make expensive short-term decisions, like high-interest credit card debt or payday loans, that cost them far more in the long run.
But something completely different happens when you can absorb that $500 without panic. Your brain stays in what I'd call planning mode. You're not scrambling, you're just adjusting. That single moment either costs you nothing but a slightly lighter savings account, or it sends you into a debt spiral that takes months to climb out of. Same expense, wildly different outcome. And the only variable is whether you built the buffer beforehand.
I'll be honest with you. I failed this test myself back when I was 24. My car's alternator died on a Tuesday. The repair quote came in at $480, and I didn't have it. I put it on a card I was already carrying a balance on, told myself I'd pay it off next month, and ended up dragging that $480 around for almost a year, paying way more in interest than the repair itself cost. It wasn't that I was bad with money in general, I just had zero cushion, and one bad week turned into 12 bad months. That's the trap. It doesn't feel like a big moment when it's happening. It just feels like Tuesday. Let's run the numbers, because this is where it gets interesting. Say you fail the $500 test and put it on a credit card at 24% interest, only paying the minimum. That $500 could take you over 2 years to pay off, and you'll hand the bank more than $150 in interest for the privilege. Now, compare that to someone who had the $500 sitting in savings. They pay it off instantly, keep their money working for them, and never think about it again. But here's the number most people never calculate. If that same $500 had been invested instead of spent on interest, growing at a modest 8% annually, it would be worth over $2,300 in 20 years. So the real cost of failing the $500 test isn't $150 in interest. It's the $2,300 in future wealth that interest payment quietly erased.
Here's a before and after most people don't think about. Before you pass the $500 test, every emergency feels like a crisis. Your car needs a repair, and suddenly your whole month is wrecked. After you pass it, the same repair is just mildly annoying.
And here's another one. Before you pass the test, you avoid checking your bank account after any surprise expense because you're afraid of what you'll see. After you pass it, you barely think about it because you already know the number won't scare you. Before you pass the test, you say yes to things out of fear. You take the extra shift you didn't want, you avoid asking for a raise, you stay quiet about a bad situation at work, all because you can't afford for anything to go wrong. After you pass the test, you start saying no to things you don't want and yes to things that actually serve you.
Now, here's where most people mess this up once they finally build that $500 cushion. They treat it like a reward instead of a foundation. They hit $500, feel good, and immediately spend it on something unrelated, then wonder why they're back to zero the next time something breaks. Don't do this. That $500 isn't a prize for good behavior. It's the first brick in a much bigger wall. If $500 can wreck your month, $5,000 can wreck your year, and $50,000 can wreck your decade. The pattern doesn't change as the number gets bigger. It just gets more expensive to fail. The people who build real wealth aren't the ones who never face financial surprises. They're the ones who built a system that absorbs the hit instead of amplifying it. So if you're being honest with yourself right now, and you know that $500 would genuinely hurt, that's not a moral failing. It's just information. It's your financial bridge telling you exactly where the weak point is. Because the version of you who builds that buffer, one boring, unglamorous dollar at a time, is the version of you who stops living in reaction and starts living with a plan. And trust me, that version of you is a lot closer to rich than you think.